welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into, well, a whole mix of recent news and discussions.
Yeah, it's quite a range.
Everything from potential shifts in immigration policy, some social unrest right here in LA, to the NBA playoffs, which have been intense,
Definitely.
plus national security topics, and even that complex P. Diddy trial. Our source material is, all over the map. YouTube transcripts from places like Fox, KCAL, MSNBC, DW News for international views, The Herd for sports.
Law and Crime, Peter Diamandis for the tech angle.
Yeah,
It's diverse.
exactly. So our mission today is to kind of pull all this together, synthesize it into something clear, concise, and hopefully pretty insightful for you. Okay, let's get started. Let's unpack this.
It really is fascinating. When you lay it all out like this, you start seeing connections between things that seem totally separate.
Like, what kind of themes are you seeing?
Well, power dynamics, definitely. Who has power, how it's used, how it gets challenged. And then there's the constant disruption from technology, plus these big shifts in, society and global relations.
Okay, let's dive into immigration first then. This idea of self-deportation is back on the table. The Trump administration suggesting maybe $1,000 incentive for people to leave voluntarily.
Right.
And the argument is, well, it saves money compared to formal deportation, like $17,000 per person, apparently, and maybe allows for legal return later.
Yeah, that's the pitch. It's not a totally brand new concept, though. We've seen similar ideas floated before.
So what makes this time different, maybe? Or what do we learn from past attempts?
Well, historically, these programs haven't always, been super effective. It really depends on whether people believe there are real consequences for staying illegally.
Ah, okay.
If the feeling is that eventually you'll face tougher penalties, then yeah, maybe $1,000 looks appealing. But looking at their broader priorities, the focus seems to still be on, people with criminal records, national security threats. Self-deportation might just be seen as another tool, maybe less resource heavy.
Right.
But you also have to think about the impact, like who actually takes the offer, what happens to the communities, the workforce. Legally, it sounds simple, but implementing it could get tricky.
Absolutely. And we did hear pushback. Senator Van Hollen worried about the impact on democratic values. But the counter argument is always that a visa is a privilege, not a right, and national security comes first. It's that core tension again.
It really is.
You see it with the sanctuary city debates, too.
Yeah.
Supporters say it protects communities. Opponents worry about harboring criminals.
Exactly.
But it seems like whatever the policy, there's this fairly consistent call from different sides to prioritize deportation for serious criminals and security risks. We've seen that under, both Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah, that prioritization part, that's maybe one area where there's a bit more common ground. Even if the overall immigration debate is still really contentious, it just makes sense to focus resources on the biggest perceived risks.
Okay. Now, shifting gears completely. Some pretty startling news out of Los Angeles. Downtown.
Yeah, that rooftop event, Dead City Punk.
Right. Reports of a mob, vandalism, tagging businesses, a police car, even damaging a metro train. Sounds like it got pretty chaotic.
It does. And what's kind of striking is the aftermath or lack thereof. Only one arrest reported, minor service delays. Given the descriptions, it seems light.
Yeah, it does raise questions.
It's like, how effective was the response? Why so few immediate consequences?
Witnesses described it really escalating. Overcrowding, people using hairspray and lighters, which is just incredibly dangerous, throwing things at police.
Wow.
And maybe the most telling thing, some people there apparently said the chaos was like part of the point, a way to let out frustration and anger.
It's interesting and worrying.
Yeah.
It suggests there's this undercurrent of anger looking for an outlet, even a destructive one.
Makes you wonder about the underlying pressures, right?
Definitely. And if the consequences are minimal, does that, accidentally encourage more of the same down the line? It's that complex mix of social frustration, public order, police response.
Right, especially in a big city. Okay, let's move to a different kind of contest. The NBA playoffs.
Always exciting.
The Knicks-Pacers series got a lot of attention. Knicks pulled out the win. Their rotational defense was mentioned a lot. For people maybe not super deep into strategy, what exactly is that and why did it work here?
Okay, so rotational defense is basically, think of it like players constantly moving, adjusting, covering for each other. If one guy steps out to challenge a shooter, another player rotates over to cover his man, and so on. It's about preventing easy shots, especially threes or drives.
Ah, okay. Like a coordinated scramble.
Exactly. And against the Pacers, it seemed to really disrupt their offensive rhythm, made it harder for guys to get clean looks when they tried to drive.
Makes sense. The analysis also kept pointing to Tyrese Halliburton for the Pacers, how even just short stretches without him seemed to completely throw off their offense.
Oh, absolutely.
Calling him a true point guard, that term came up, contrasting him with scoring point guards. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. A true point guard traditionally is someone who's pass first. Their main job is setting up teammates, controlling the game's tempo, orchestrating the offense. Think like Magic Johnson back in the day.
Right.
Scoring point guards like Brunson for the Knicks or Steph Curry, Dame Lillard, they can pass, obviously, but they're often looking for their own shot first. They can dominate the ball more. Halliburton is the Pacers' engine. When he's out, their whole fast-paced, share-the-ball system kind of sputters.
And that led to chatter about what the Knicks might need if they, say, didn't advance further. Things like more three-point shooting, another scorer who doesn't need the ball all the time, maybe more length in defense.
Yeah, the usual what next
Yeah.
speculation.
Someone even floated the idea of getting Kevin Durant, trading Karl Anthony Towns maybe, which sounds like a blockbuster. What are the quick pros and cons there?
Well, yeah, huge move. Pro, instant offense, championship experience with Durant. He's still an incredible scorer. Con, you're trading a younger, versatile big in Towns, disrupts chemistry. What about defense? Plus, Durant's older, and there are big salary cap things to figure out. It's a lot to consider.
For sure. The talk also centered on how the Knicks' offense is very, very Brunson heavy.
Very.
And the suggestion was they maybe need to spread it out more, be more like the Pacers when Halliburton's running things. But interestingly, the Knicks actually played pretty well sometimes when Brunson wasn't on the floor.
Right, which hints they might have more depth than they always use.
Yeah. The core difference seemed to be Brunson is score first, maybe doesn't lift everyone else up quite the same way Halliburton does with his passing.
That's a fair assessment. Halliburton elevates the whole team through distribution. Brunson elevates them through his scoring, which requires a different kind of supporting cast.
Like, the Knicks need catch-and-shoot guys around Brunson.
Exactly. Whereas the Pacers, because of Halliburton, had something like 10 different players lead them in scoring this season. That's incredible diversity.
Wow, 10. Okay, shifting west. Thunder Timberwolves. OKC looked, well, pretty different home versus road, right? Scoring way more at home.
Yeah, that definitely points towards, maybe youth, playoff inexperience on the road. That road environment in the playoffs is just a different beast.
Right.
And Minnesota's Game 3 win, winning by 45 after being up 42, that's not just a win, that's a huge mental statement, especially against an OKC team that hadn't really been blown out like that.
A real wake-up call for OKC.
Absolutely. For Minnesota, the key seemed to be cutting down turnovers that hurt them early in the series and getting Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns playing well together, finding that rhythm.
Yeah, when those two click, they're tough. That kind of dominant win can definitely swing the whole feel of a series.
Oh, for sure. Sends a clear message.
All right, let's turn to national security. President Trump announced a new missile defense system. 100% protection, he called it, emphasizing U.S.-made parts. That's a very bold claim.
100% protection is, let's say, technologically ambitious. Getting a truly perfect shield against all missile threats is incredibly difficult, maybe impossible right now.
So strategically, what's the play?
Well, it projects strength, technological leadership.
Yeah.
Congressman Ryan put it in the context of, stopping the U.S. from being taken advantage of, defending against threats. He pointed to cooperation between Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela as a big concern, energy, weapons tech, that kind of thing.
There was also that direct comparison saying the lifestyle in the U.S. and allied countries is just better.
Yeah, a pretty blunt assertion.
And on a different note, Memorial Day observations. Focusing on honoring sacrifice, remembering individual stories.
Right, connecting the big geopolitical stuff back to the human cost, the values supposedly being defended. It adds an important layer.
And speaking of human stories, George Floyd's aunt had a message on the anniversary of his death. She called for unity, solidarity, even forgiveness, which is striking, urging progress.
That is striking, a call for unity and forgiveness even while demanding progress in today's climate. It's a really complex, powerful message. Speaks to that ongoing struggle for healing and change.
Okay, now, pretty contentious topic. President Trump's recent posts about Harvard University.
Yeah, I saw those.
Criticizing them for being slow with lists of foreign students, calling them radicalized lunatics, threatening to pull billions in grant money and give it to trade schools instead. Professor Tribe had a strong reaction.
He did, called it unhinged, basically. Said Trump's legally way off base. You can't just demand lists of students and probe their thoughts. Huge First Amendment issues there.
Right. And the context is Harvard has thousands of international students, about 7,000 out of 25,000 incoming, I think. They're there because they're excellent students.
Exactly. Tribe argues this looks like retaliation, maybe because of curriculum Trump doesn't like, or because Harvard won't hand over private student info. The legal ground for Trump's threat seems shaky.
A judge already issued a temporary restraining order, right?
Yes, which supports Tribe's point. He called Trump a paper tiger in court recently, pointing to a string of legal losses.
And Tribe's interpretation of the motive, that Trump wants to know what students are thinking, reading, especially regarding protests about, say, Israel and Gaza, wants to control a private university's thinking.
That's the concern, yeah. Exerting control over academic freedom. Tribe even used the term bill of attainder, like historically punishing a specific group without trial. It's strong language.
And he mentioned his own background, coming to the U.S. as a refugee.
Right, bringing a personal perspective on the value of welcoming international students and the potential harm of these kinds of actions.
Okay, shifting focus to the Middle East. Reports say Israel plans a major push in Gaza, aiming to capture 75% of the territory within 2 months.
Part of the offensive against Hamas.
And the stated belief is that defeating Hamas will somehow lead to the hostages being released. They're calling it Operation Gideon's Chariots, a big reservist mobilization.
Yeah, an operation on that scale in such a densely packed area. The challenges are immense. Urban warfare is incredibly difficult.
What are the goals, beyond just territory?
Likely dismantling Hamas infrastructure, gaining security control, setting up these humanitarian free zones. They talk about trying to separate civilians from combatants, manage aid. But the risks, civilian casualties, humanitarian crisis, actually eliminating Hamas, it's incredibly complex.
And the link between defeating Hamas and getting hostages back?
It's calculation, not necessarily guarantee. Hostage control might be fractured within Hamas or other groups. It's not a simple equation.
We also saw Homeland Security Secretary Noam visiting Israel, showing solidarity after that incident with embassy staff in D.C.
Right, underscoring the alliance.
And the U.S.-Iran nuclear talks are still simmering. Trump sounds optimistic, but Israel seems skeptical. What's the sticking point?
The core issue is still Iran's uranium enrichment. The Trump administration wanted full dismantlement of their nuclear program. Current talks are probably focused on limits, monitoring. Israel worries anything less leaves the door open for Iran to eventually get a bomb.
So the threat of military action from Israel, or maybe jointly with the U.S., still hangs over the talks.
It absolutely does. It's the leverage or the perceived fallback if diplomacy fails. Secretary Noam's visit fits into that, showing security cooperation. Interesting side note, Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty passing away was mentioned in the same breath in some reports.
No. Weird juxtaposition.
Yeah.
Okay, back in D.C., the Senate's looking at Trump's tax cut and spending bill, facing pushback from both sides.
Yeah. Some Republicans think it doesn't cut spending enough. Democrats are against cuts to things like food assistance, Medicaid, classic D.C. gridlock over fiscal priorities.
And Trump delayed those EU tariffs.
Right. Suggests maybe a bit of caution on the trade front there, worries about retaliation, impact on consumers, maybe wanting to keep negotiating.
Got it. And finally, going back to Memorial Day, those stories from CBN News about D-Day, Iwo Jima.
Yeah, powerful reminders.
Just emphasizing the sheer sacrifice, the cost of freedom. It puts current debates in perspective.
It really does. Remembering the human cost, the scale of those historical struggles, it's crucial context for everything we're discussing now.
Okay, let's switch gears again. Maybe something a bit lighter. Major League Baseball.
Always room for baseball.
Seen some surprises, right? Rookies like Jacob Wilson, Willie Maysaver making noise, some teams struggling unexpectedly, like the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, the ups and downs of a long season. And O'Neal Cruz hitting that ball incredibly hard. Always fun to see records like that.
And the Cardinals apparently started winning after Star Wars Day. You always look for those weird streaks.
Plus, potential investigation into the Red Sox over pitcher use, and everyone waiting to see if Shohei Ohtani pitches again.
Right, those are big ongoing stories. Rookie impacts, team streaks, Ohtani's future. Keeps things interesting.
Okay, now back to something much more serious and complex. The P. Diddy trial? Yeah, the allegations are extremely serious. Sex trafficking, racketeering.
And a lot of high-profile names potentially involved as witnesses or victims. Cassie Ventura Fine's testimony has been particularly disturbing. Alleged abuse, control. These freak-off sessions she described.
It's deeply disturbing stuff. Her testimony paints a picture of, well, extreme alleged power imbalance and coercion.
And the list of other celebrities mentioned. Dallas Austin, Britney Spears, Kid Cudi, Lil Wayne, Usher, Neo. It's extensive, either connected to Diddy or potential witnesses to alleged abuse.
It really highlights the scope of his influence and the potential reach of these alleged activities within that world.
The core themes seem to be power, control, financial dependence, and alleged threats. Threats against Cassie, against Kid Cudi releasing tapes, physical harm, even arson.
Chilling allegations. It points towards a potential climate of fear, intimidation. This idea of a culture of silence makes it hard to get to the truth.
Legally, what's the key difference between proving, say, domestic abuse versus these bigger charges like sex trafficking and racketeering? Why does that matter here?
Okay, so simplifying it. Sex trafficking needs proof of compelling someone into sex acts through force, fraud, or coercion, often with a commercial element. Racketeering requires showing a pattern of organized illegal activity.
So more than just one-on-one abuse.
Exactly. It has to be broader, more systematic. Domestic abuse laws focus on violence and control within specific relationships. The trafficking and racketeering charges imply a much larger, organized criminal enterprise. That's why testimony from multiple people, potentially including other celebrities, could be crucial to establish that alleged pattern of coercion and control.
Right, I see. Okay, let's pivot again. An interesting trend among young people, Gen Z especially, more interest in trade jobs. Plumbing, electrical work, that kind of thing, instead of just defaulting to a 4-year college degree.
Yeah, it's a noticeable shift. Seems like a departure from the last generation or two.
What's driving it, do you think?
Well, several things probably. One is definitely anxiety about AI and automation hitting white-collar jobs. People are looking for more secure careers.
Makes sense.
Plus, the crazy cost of college and the fact that a degree doesn't always, lead straight to a great job in your field anymore. Trade jobs often have apprenticeships you start earning sooner.
And maybe just wanting hands-on work, something less likely to be automated.
That too. And maybe some disillusionment with the whole college degree is the only path to success idea. A reevaluation is happening.
Experts are saying it shows we're realizing AI can't do everything, right? We still need skilled humans for essential trades.
Absolutely. And the earning potential in trades could be really good, plus opportunities to start your own business eventually.
We even heard Trump proposing to shift grant money to trade schools. And Democrats talking about the importance of unions in those jobs. So, recognition across the board.
Seems like it. A growing appreciation for the value of skilled labor. It's pragmatic, really. Young people looking at the future job market and making calculated choices could be really positive for addressing labor shortages.
Okay, international news. Germany has lifted restrictions on Ukraine using Western long-range weapons to hit targets inside Russia.
That's a significant shift, a big policy change.
What are the immediate implications? And what's the reaction from Russia?
Well, Ukraine gets more leeway to defend itself, basically. They can hit military sites, command centers, supply lines, airfields where attacks might be originating from inside Russia, stuff that was maybe off limits before with Western weapons.
And the Kremlin.
Predictably, they warned about dangerous escalation. That's the standard response. But some analysts see this as, frankly, maybe overdue but necessary for Ukraine to better defend itself. And it shows maybe more resolve from Europe.
There was that idea that Putin's actions are sometimes a response to perceived weakness. So maybe a stronger European stance is needed.
That's one interpretation, yeah. That a more united, assertive stance from Europe could be a better deterrent. And Europe stepping up, providing support, offering future security guarantees, that's becoming a bigger part of the conversation, especially with uncertainty about future U.S. policy.
Macron's idea of a deadline for Russia, trying to put pressure on.
Exactly. And trying to maybe box in leaders like Trump, present a united front that's harder to undermine. It's all very complex, very high stakes.
Okay, finally, let's loop back to tech and AI. It's moving so fast. OpenAI reportedly just bought an AI device startup from Jony Ive of Apple fame for $6.5 billion.
Now, that's huge, a massive investment.
What does that signal about OpenAI's plans?
It signals they're thinking way beyond just software, beyond ChatGPT, getting into hardware. That suggests they want to create a whole integrated AI experience, maybe compete directly with the big guys like Apple and Google on devices.
And there's that prediction about AI flipping the media landscape.
Yeah.
AI-generated content on demand potentially decimating Hollywood.
Yeah, that's a disruptive thought. A future where content is maybe ultra-personalized, generated instantly. Big implications for creators and studios.
Google's not standing still either. Their big I/O event showcased updates to Gemini AI models talking speed, efficiency. Introduced Project Astra, this universal AI assistant.
Right, they're pushing hard. Gemini Flash, Gemini Diffusion for image generation, Astra trying to be this natural voice-controlled assistant that can see and interact with your computer.
And they're putting AI mode right into Google search.
Yep, integrating advanced AI reasoning directly into search results. It's clear the race is on. Everyone's trying to build the next generation of AI interaction.
We also heard about companies or countries maybe choosing in-house AI, like Llama 4, for privacy reasons, instead of relying on OpenAI or Google.
That's becoming a factor, yeah. Data sovereignty, control over your own AI destiny. Peter Diamandis' 10 tech meta trends kind of frame all these converging forces.
And the market share. Still OpenAI and Google leading, but others like Anthropic XAI are in the mix.
Definitely. It's a competitive field, and you see these creative examples like that AI video of dinosaurs attacking data centers shows the potential, even in playful ways.
Salim Vima's point about AI potentially leapfrogging development in emerging countries.
Yeah, the idea that AI could help bypass traditional development stages, huge potential, but needs smart government policies to manage it.
The analogy of AI becoming like Jarvis from Iron Man, but for everyone.
It really captures it, doesn't it? That level of capability becoming accessible, it's transformative.
So, wrapping this all up, it's fascinating how these threads connect. Power dynamics and politics, personal stuff like the Diddy allegations, tech competition.
Definitely.
Then just the sheer speed of tech change hitting everything. Jobs, security, and the global landscape constantly shifting.
Absolutely. Which brings us to maybe a final thought for you, the listener. Think about how these different stories might actually influence each other down the road. Which one of these, maybe seemingly separate events, do you think could have the biggest long-term impact on your world? And what questions does all this raise?